After traveling for 4 days, we were finally getting closer to Maranatha Advent Christian Church. We had arrived at Mutarara well after dark on Saturday night, covered with dust and dirt, sore and tired from hours spent traveling over the deeply pitted dirt roads. The sun was shining on Sunday morning as we all piled back into the van to drive the 45 minutes from Mutarara to Mandua. Excited to be nearing our destination, we watched the landscape as we drove past thatched huts and through small villages. All of a sudden, children began to appear on both sides of the road up ahead of us. It was our welcoming committee from Maranatha Advent Christian Church. As we were approaching the village, the children were singing and throwing flowers into the van. I've never felt so welcomed in all my life. The singing continued. One of the lines translated to, "We welcome you with our 2 hands." As we exited the van, they ceremonially put a necklace around my neck and the neck of Area Director Bryce Whiting. They continued singing songs, and at times I could make out the phrases Mama Lana and Brudda Bryce.
Probably my heart was the fullest when we drove into the village and everybody was, yay, woo, singing for us.
It was quite a humbling experience to be welcomed with such heartfelt love and hospitality. As we entered the church, we were seated in places of honor up near the podium.
Our driver was also welcomed in to this group of people who were honoring us as visitors, and I looked over to the right and I saw our driver for the week searching through the Bible, and my heart just overflowed with joy. Just watching him get curious about Scripture and just find a moment where he realized he was in an environment that was safe for him to do that was really awesome.
The building was packed full of families, and faces filled the doors, windows, and every possible opening.
I have been to 25 countries. And I've never been greeted as well as this.
Words of greeting were spoken and introductions were made. Bryce Whiting brought the morning message. After the morning service on Sunday, Joe Brown and other members of the team played with the children outdoors, singing songs. And soon a dance circle was formed. This was a day for building relationships with the people of the village. Our team received a very specific invitation to travel to Mozambique. Several years earlier, former Africa-Europe Area Director for Advent Christian World Outreach, Russell Carl, had traveled to Mutarara with the purpose of teaching the pastors. As Russell taught the men, the women stayed outside preparing meals and taking care of the children. They had asked Russell Carl when he was here teaching the pastors, why won't someone come and teach us? And so we came at their invitation. Since most of the women cannot read or write, an oral storytelling method utilizing simple drawings seemed like the best fit for the task.
When Lana first came to me and told me about the opportunity to go to Mozambique and do a oral storytelling method with a group of women, I was just really excited because I've been on a couple of different mission trips, but none of them have ever been focused specifically on the women. And in a culture where women are maybe not usually given an opportunity for education and empowerment, I was really excited to be able to be a part of that process.
At the same time, at Camp Dixie in Fayetteville, North Carolina, members of the team had been using an oral storytelling method known as Echo the Story by Michael Novelli. In June of 2012, Russell extended the invitation to Lana to put together a team to travel to Mozambique. The primary mission of the team was to share God's story using an oral storytelling method with the women from Maranatha Advent Christian Church. We chose Novelli's 7-story set, covering God's story from creation through restoration. Samuel Sasona of the Malawi Advent Christian Conference completed a written translation of the stories into the Chichewa dialect. the first moment that I learned this teaching method. And I remember coming out of a seminar in the United States and telling other people, I don't know what's going on, but that was a divine appointment, and God is going to use this. And I really thought that it was going to be just in our ministry at Camp Dixie. But to have the chance to see this lived out in a whole nother culture where we thought language was going to be a barrier. Jesus said to go into all the world and make disciples, and I've always been one who wanted to make disciples, but I never thought that I would be one who went to another country to make disciples. So whenever you see this symbol, this is the symbol for the first story of creation. And you will see it a lot this week. It was a direct answer to prayer that we were blessed with two amazing female translators, Doti from Malawi and Patricia from Tate. We taught 2 episodes of the story each day with the women. First, we told the story and had it translated line by line. Then the translator told the story in the local dialect, Chichewa, without interruption.
Yeah? And he did that not with everybody. He did that with the people he was close with. He tried to tell them. He tried to make it really clear. I have to die in order to make it right with God. And for you, I do that in love.
Then we talked about the story, involving the women in retelling the story, making sure that they understood the major concepts.
Abraham, yes, Abraham.
As the teaching progressed, we helped them make important connections between the stories. If possible, we included an experience that illustrated the story.
Another part of the picture that we talked about, because of the separation.
We introduced the symbol for the story and gave them opportunities to practice drawing the symbols.
It was one of the first days they passed out the whiteboards and they were teaching the symbols. And at first I was like, are these women, are they understanding what Lauren and Lana and Tabitha are teaching them? Are they getting it? And then they passed out the whiteboards and the markers, and these women didn't even know how to open up a marker. And we're like, if they can't even open a marker, how are they going to understand the stories, the concepts that they're trying to teach? But as soon as they got the marker open, they were able to draw out the symbols. And not just one of them or 2 of them, all of them. And just as they were drawing them, I'm sitting there videotaping and my eyes are filled with tears because I'm like, they get it. They understand exactly what we're trying to tell them.
Adam, Eva. You do it.
And I think my favorite symbol that we drew, the day that we drew the barefoot symbol in the sand, they laughed at each other's feet, because feet are so hard to draw anyway. And Lauren and I were laughing at the feet that we were drawing. And the women started pointing at each other's feet when they would draw them and just laughing. And it was just, we were all on the same page there. None of us could draw very good looking feet, but we all knew what it was. That was just every day when we would get those boards out to draw. They were so excited. They were very childlike in their excitement about trying something new.
Here, do your circle just here. Nice, good job, excellent.
My favorite moment, again, was just the women drawing them on the whiteboards, and then the look on their faces when Lauren would come by and say, yes, when they got the symbol right. Or when, as being the cameraman, I would just kind of give them a thumbs up if they got it right. And just the smiles on their faces when they got the symbol right or got the story right. I just feel like they're not used to getting affirmation, and we were able to affirm them in their learning, and their faces just lit up, and it was awesome.
Since dance is such an important part of the culture, Tabitha introduced a movement for each episode of the story that, when put together with music, formed a dance that reinforced the learning.
Rock my sword, my shield, he's my wheel in the middle of the wheel. He's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. Makes no difference what you say, I'm gonna get on.
I was hanging out with about 60 to 80 kids a day, just coming up with some games. We really didn't, we didn't know exactly what we were getting into, and I thought there were probably about 10 or 20 kids, but we came together and played, and it's amazing how just the basics of an idea or basics of a stick can go a very long way with these children to be entertained. So it was a great time hanging out with the kids.
On Tuesday was the first day that we asked the women to interact with the children. And we asked the women to go outside and to teach the children the third story, which is about Abraham's covenant, which many of them knew before. And it was just a beautiful moment of watching the women be empowered by having the action and having the knowledge and having the wisdom to teach and to continue a legacy of God's story in their own family.
And I'm going to see each one of you. Aliyense anachemerwa kule bamvunja kurijina kuchima uvura ninji matenda kwa mbadwalewe kandi mtima kutamanga una masuku amaloka.
Another important part of our mission was to provide health care and education to the women at the conference. For 3 out of the 4 days in the village, Cynthia Lee saw 57 women in her makeshift clinic. She interviewed each woman, giving them a complete health screening and performing 17 HIV tests. Hygiene kits were given out to all the women at the conference.
I waited an entire day because I knew once they figured out who I was and what I was here to do, that it would be a distraction for Lana and Lauren and Tabitha in teaching the women.
We gained important insights through Cynthia's interviews with the women. Very few of the women have had an opportunity to get an education. In order to go to school, you have to have a birth certificate. In order to get a birth certificate, you have to be born in a hospital and have a male sign your birth certificate. In order to get to the hospital, you have to drive 45 minutes to Mutarara. None of the people in the village of Mandua have a vehicle in which to drive a woman in labor to the hospital. The women do not know when their birthdays are or how old they are. Their lives are lived season to season, day to day, year after year, without ever looking at a date on a calendar. Hygiene kits were also given out to all the men of the village. Members of the team visited 2 other Advent Christian churches with conference president Augustus Ochisimbi in Mozambique and blessed them with hygiene kits also.
Dear God, I ask that you would continue to empower Linda to tell you her story with fervency, Lord, that she would not just know the symbols, but she would know the meaning behind each one of them as she creates a world around you, Jesus.
On the last day of the conference, we had a meaningful closing ceremony with the women. They had learned through the People of Promise story that God had blessed Abraham so that he would be a blessing to others. We called each woman up by name, inviting her to come up to the front of the church to receive a blessing.
Each time I put a scarf around a lady's neck and said, I bless you with this scarf, I just, again, had to fight back the tears. It was just, I'm not sure if they've had that before. They just all seemed very humble and accepting of that blessing that we were giving to them, because we've talked about that a lot this week.
We draped a scarf imprinted with the 7 story symbols around the neck of each woman, praying a prayer of blessing over her and challenging her to go forth to bless others with the story of God. The women each received a second scarf to be given away to another woman as they share with her God's story. In early conversations about the storytelling method, Russell Carl had asked what turned out to be a prophetic question. Are the symbols simple enough that they could be drawn in the dirt if people didn't have pencil and paper? On the final day of teaching, we reviewed all the stories and symbols with the women and spent some time helping them get the order of the stories correct. As we sent them out again to review all the symbols with the children, we remembered Russell's question and saw his vision fulfilled as we watched the story of God unfold in the sand.
As we taught them the stories and then we let them go out and teach the children, again, I got tears in my eyes because we had done what we had come to do. We had taught them the stories. We had empowered them to be able to tell the stories themselves. And it was just a beautiful picture of the ladies, down on their hands and knees with the kids, teaching them the stories.
But that was our heart all along, was that the children would learn the stories too, that the women would learn it, and it would be empowering to them to be able to learn how to teach the children.
We came here to teach these women so they can teach their children, and their children can teach their children. And we saw that happening throughout the week.
A lot of these women already knew about Jesus Christ, but they were not very learned in any of the concepts of God's story overall. So putting all of the stories together with them was beautiful. But in the process, watching them learn how to do that was wonderful. And I see myself in learning that it doesn't matter whether I speak English or they speak Chichewa, or if they speak Portuguese or whatever other language it is that they speak, just that everybody has a part in that story. And it reminds me that Jesus is going to come back again, and at some point we will all be able to communicate with each other. And this was just the beginning of an opening view of that.
Thank you, all of the people that gave.
I just want to say truly thank you to everybody, all the many churches, all the people who donated supplies, money, prayer.
I just want to thank my church families. I feel honored to have 2 church families.
Our church family, our conference family, and all the other individuals and groups who gave financially, gave with purchase of the hygiene kits, the health kits, and just words of encouragement. As a newlywed, I am also thankful to my husband for praying for me and for all of the other husbands and wives of the people on this trip. Without their constant support, just knowing that they were behind us, and the multitudes of people who were praying on our behalf, that God's name would be spread and that people would understand His story. I felt covered with prayer the entire time I was here, and for that, again, I am thankful.
I stood up at church one Sunday and said, we need some care kits to take to Mozambique with us. And I come to church the next Sunday and there's 100 care kits waiting for us. And I mean, that's just a blessing to know that our church families love us all so much and want to help out so much. And we truly appreciate that you taking the time, the money to donate all these goods, because they've already been put to use here in Mozambique.
for all the people in those churches and then in my school family and things that have been praying for this trip for many, many months, but then maybe even a little bit more diligently while we've been here. So I'm just very appreciative. The things that have happened would not have happened without the support of all of the people.
I even had a childhood friend on Facebook from one of our blog posts who gave a large sum of money because he heard about where we were going, and I have not spoken to him since I was 8 years old.
I really thank you, and I hope you will continue to give.
And also thanks for the prayer. So many people have been praying for us. It's overwhelming, the support, the love. Just thank you to our families and friends.
People who had not were able to give so that I could be here and so that Jesus' name could be spread. Just the blessing that they were to others was beautiful, and for that I am forever thankful and grateful.
Many people have given of their resources and their finances to make this trip possible. And we want to say thank you so much. You have been here with us every minute. We have felt the strength of your prayers. We've been able to share the blessing that you gave to us. We have passed on to others who I believe will pass it on to others as they continue to share God's story using these symbols. So thank you for your prayers, for your support, for your gifts of money, for those of you who bought bars of soap that we could bless others with. That has been amazing, and we just can't say thank you enough.
In Mozambique, we say obrigado.